A little bit. I've known Ryan, I guess, for 5 years now. Yeah, Ryan, he's going to tell you all this probably in a second, but he's the college pastor at First Baptist Waco. He's been crushing it over there. I respect Ryan probably as much as anybody else in Waco in the way that he does ministry, missiology, and discipleship. And so I'm excited that he's going to come teach you guys for a little bit. But yeah, give him a hand.
Thanks, Will. Good to be with you guys today. So excited to hear what you guys are doing with Pathway. Just out of curiosity, how many of you were in Pathway as freshmen last year? That's a lot. Wow, that's great. So what that tells me is that this has been a good experience for you, and that you see the potential here, and that you know this can be a good experience for somebody else. And so it's awesome that you guys are here. A little bit about me as we start off. So as Will said, I'm the college pastor at First Baptist Waco. I love our college group there. It's an incredible group of people. My wife teaches here on campus. How many of you maybe have taken public speaking? Anybody had Rachel Russel? Anybody by chance? Yeah? All right. Love that. So shout out if you need to take public speaking. Take my wife, take Rachel. She's fantastic. We have a son who's now 6 months old and who we adopted back in October. And we are thrilled because we just found out that 9 days from now we get to go downtown to the courthouse and officially, formally adopt him into our family. Thank you, appreciate that. We're really excited. So I'm gonna have you make a list of something on your paper or phone or something like that we're gonna come back to in a few minutes. So what I want you to do right now is you're gonna write down 3 things, okay, that you could talk about for a really, really long time, okay, if the other person was interested, 3 things that you could talk about for, quote, forever, okay, because you're passionate about them, you know a lot about them, and you just sort of start talking about them and you just kind of almost can't stop, right? So those 3 things for me, as I'm thinking about it, are Baylor basketball would be one, all right, huge fan. Another would be genetic genealogy. It's a hobby of mine that I kind of use DNA and genealogy to help people find their birth family. It's a really cool hobby I've been able to practice for the past few years. So basketball, Baylor basketball, genetic genealogy, and then the future of the church. I love talking with people about what is the church going to look like in future decades, and what is faithfulness going to look like? What is discipleship going to look like in the huge future of the American church? So you've got a list. Hopefully you're writing it down right now. About 3 things. Could be anything. That you are super passionate about. Somebody have their list done already? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, right here. Do you mind reading your list? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I did the South, South Carolina.
South Carolina, cool.
Country music.
Country music.
And then I wrote my faith.
Your faith. Okay, great. Awesome. Love that. So good job. One more person. Want to share? Anybody who's done? You're still working on it. That's okay. We'll come. Oh, right here. Okay.
I said Jesus, but more specifically
Cool.
studying the word and how it's still necessary
Great.
rather than today.
Yes.
I said teaching, because I'm an elementary educator, and I said faith.
Okay, awesome. Great job. Very good. You'll have a chance to share a little more with a partner in a little bit, so hang on to that. But what I want to talk to you about first, before we get into that, is the idea of making disciples. So last time David was here, and you talked a little bit about the relationship between being a disciple and making disciples. Jesus has called us to make disciples, but before we can make disciples, we have to first learn how to be a disciple, right? That we can't do this for other people if we're not actually following Jesus and becoming a disciple of him ourselves, right? But now we're going to turn the corner a little bit today, and we're going to talk about making disciples and what that looks like with other people. You're going to be given a group in Pathway, and they're going to be sort of your people, right? You're the ones that have some responsibility over to work with and to invest in their lives, and you want to work with that group of people to help make disciples of this group of freshmen. So how do you do that? How do you go about it? I think when a lot of people think about making disciples, they start thinking about, okay, well, I probably need some sort of tool or technique to learn how to share the gospel with other people, or maybe I need an approach of how to teach this person theology or doctrine and the right things to believe, or maybe I need some ways to help this person develop practices in their life so they can tangibly follow Jesus. All of that's important. That's all wonderful. But I think it leaves out the most important part of discipleship. And here's what it is, if you're someone who likes to write things down, is that making disciples is first and foremost a relational activity, okay? It's first and foremost a relational activity. If we don't have relationships with the people that we are trying to help become disciples, then all of our strategies, all of our techniques, all of our information is not going to go anywhere, okay? And what I'm getting at here is the idea that becoming a disciple is not about downloading information, okay? Now, information is part of the process. We need to learn about God. We need to learn about how to follow him. That's important. But becoming a disciple is not just about downloading the right information that you pass along to somebody else. The information we receive always comes through another person, and the level of relationship and trust that we have with that person that we're hearing it from is going to dictate how much impact that content that we're hearing is going to have on our life, okay? So in Mark chapter 3, Jesus, we get this list of the 12 disciples and who they are, and it says something really interesting down in verse 14 of Mark 3. First of all, verse 13, Jesus went up on a mountainside and he called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12 that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach and have authority to drive out demons. So before you get to any of the preaching and the miraculous stuff, the first thing that Jesus wanted the disciples to do was to come and be with him, right? There was a relationship here. Discipleship in the first century was all about following somebody around. Your discipler was somebody who didn't just have a meeting with you on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., okay? That they said, come follow my life. Come follow me around and watch me. Watch the way I eat, the way I interact with people, the things I do with my time, the way I run my errands. You literally follow them around in your life. You are called to go be with that person, right? And along the way, you're catching what it looks like to be a disciple of, in this case, Jesus. And so making disciples is, first of all, it's a relational activity. Yes, the content's important, but if there's not relationships, this is going to fall apart. And here's the second thing I would have you know, is that's all because trusting God follows from trusting another believer. So if you think about how people come to faith, about how someone comes to faith in Christ for the first time, that most of the time what happens is first they learn to trust a Christian before they learn to trust God. It's not just this information hits their brain that they hadn't heard before, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, okay, cool, didn't know that, now I know it. That information came from somewhere and from someone. And typically what happens is as you become a trusted person in their life, this person has seen the gospel come alive in your life. They've seen the way that it affects your relationships, your priorities, your character, the way that you love other people, the way you live in community, that you are living a beautiful life in their eyes. And so they're drawn to Christ because first they're drawn to you. That trusting God follows from trusting another believer. This isn't just for new believers too, though. If you think about all of us are on a trajectory. We're all on a journey of becoming more and more like Christ. We're all on a journey of trusting God with more and more of our life. And what's going to help you do that time and time again in your journey is by having relationships with other believers. Is the fact that as you are connected with other people who are following after Christ with their life, and as you spend time with them, you see the way that they follow God. You see the way that they talk to others. You see the way that they're pursuing God and fleeing from sin in their life. Those relationships are going to keep pushing you towards Him, to trust Him with more and more of your life. Let's say that this week, and I hope this doesn't happen, but let's say that something really hard happens in your life this week. Maybe there's a relationship that you have that all of a sudden becomes really damaged in some way. Who are you gonna go to talk to about this? Who's gonna be the person that you call up on the phone or meet up for coffee and just need to just tell them about this really hard thing that went on in your life? Now, you're not gonna call me, and I'm not offended by that, okay? Like we just met, you know. You may say, you know, he knows stuff about discipleship, that's cool, but you're not gonna call me. Who are you gonna call, right? You're gonna call someone that you trust, right? You're gonna call your best friend. Maybe it's your roommate. Maybe it's somebody that has been there for you in hard times before. Maybe it's a mentor in your life. Maybe it's a family member. And that person is the trusted person that's gonna walk through those circumstances with you in your life. And so what we need to do, if we're wanting to make disciples, is to learn how to build trust with other people. So your hope as you're meeting freshmen in the fall and you're getting to know them is your goal is to become a trusted person in their life so that when inevitably something hard happens in their freshman year, when they go to a party and they cross a line that they wouldn't have wished they wouldn't have crossed, when they have a panic attack because their school's work is just way too much for them and they just cannot carry the load anymore. When they have a relationship that falls apart and they're just really not sure where to go forward from here. When they feel like God was calling them to this major and then all of a sudden now it feels like he's doing something completely different. Man, our hope for you is that you would have become a trusted person in this freshman's life. That you can become a person that they come and talk to, can discuss this with, can be a safe person to help guide them through the twists and turns that inevitably, as we all know, happen through freshman year. And so here's the idea, is that how do we make disciples? 3 things. Build relationships, we build relationships, we build relationships. And yes, there's a lot more to it than that. Yes, there's content and things we need to be able to say about the gospel, and there's tools we need and practices, and all of that's important and all of that matters. But if we don't have relationships with the people that we're coming into contact with, then all of it's going to fall apart, all of it's not going to go anywhere. And when life gets hard, they're going to go somewhere else instead. We want them to come to us. We want to be a safe, trusted person that we can walk through life with, and then we can point them to God as a source of hope and healing and the one who can truly really help them in their life, right? That's what we want to do and what we want to be. So I want to introduce to you a chart that's been super helpful for me in my life. It's this idea of safety and stretching, okay? And so basically what this chart does is it communicates that in any relationship you have, if you want to be able to stretch the other person, if you want to be able to speak truth into their life, if you want to be able to say what needs to be said, if you want to help challenge them and grow them, then you're only going to be able to do that to the degree that you've created safety in that relationship with another person, okay? So think about this. If some stranger comes up to you tomorrow on campus and tries to call you out for something, you're going to be like, who the heck are you? You don't know me, you don't know my life, right? But if a trusted friend that you know and respect and trust comes to you and says, hey, I don't really want to say this, but I've been feeling like I need to just say something that you need to hear. And I've been noticing this about your life. And, you're going to hear that a lot better because you love that person. You trust them. You respect them. And so the level of safety we have, as it increases on this bottom axis, the ability of stretching that we're able to do in another person's life can increase, okay? So here's some quadrants that can help us out. I love a good quadrant, all right? And so think of this as like low safety, high safety, and then low stretching and high stretching. So first of all, let's talk about this stagnant box right here. If you have, and we all have relationships in all of these boxes, okay? So relationships that you would say, hey, there's a low level of safety and trust with this person, and there's not really any stretching happening in that relationship either. That's fine. You can't have this with everybody in your life, right? But that's a relationship that's stagnant. It's not really going anywhere, right? It's just there. You know each other's names, okay? Now, the bottom right is one where there's a lot of safety. You love each other. You love spending time with one another. It's great. But there's not a lot of stretching that goes on. It's not really like when you get together, you're talking about the Lord and you're talking about how to help each other grow in your faith. It's just, you're chill and you like each other and it's friendly, okay? Let's call that a shallow relationship, okay? It's not bad, but it's just, there's not a lot of stretching going on there. And then think about the top left one right here. When you try to stretch someone, and this is huge for Pathway here, when you try to stretch someone, but there's not any trust, there's no safety in the relationship, and you're trying to yank them further and further and further, and they're basically like, who the heck are you? Then that's going to be a strained relationship really quickly, okay? We can't hear things that are hard to hear from people that we don't have safety with. So the ideal, and what we want to kind of move towards, is this upper right quadrant, that as time goes on, safety is increasing and stretching is increasing in a parallel way so that we can be shaped by these relationships where there's high safety and high stretching as well, okay? So this is kind of my recipe for how to make disciples, build relationships. And how do we build relationships? We do it by increasing the safety of the relationships so that then stretching can happen along the way. Does that make sense? Good? Cool. So here are the 3 ways that you can increase safety, because that's really the question, right? How do we increase safety so that we can increase stretching? And there's basically 3 things. One of them is creating memories. So I don't think we probably have time to do this, but what you should totally do is make a list of things, you might want to do it right now on your paper, of fun memories you had as a freshman. Like when you went and did something with people that was outside of the box a little bit, and you like went on a little mini road trip or stayed up super late or did something like outside of the box, and you just kind of look back at your freshman year and you're like, man, that was awesome, you know? Especially in those first weeks, you're like, Mom and Dad aren't here, this is sick, you know? Like, what were those memories for you? You ought to kind of make a list of those things and then try to create those memories with your freshmen next year, some of them. You're going to want to have fun experiences together, because when you do, I bet those people you did those things with, you felt a lot more safety with those people afterwards, you know? You felt more trust, you felt like we had this awesome experience together, and you felt closer together as a result of that experience, okay? So that's something we want to do. The second one is learning to listen. I'm going to come back to this. And the third one is time. We can't rush this, but the more we do number 1 and number 2, the more we can accelerate the process of time. So I had you come up with a list a few minutes ago of 3 things that you're super passionate about, right? And you can talk about for a long time. You're going to partner up right now, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to, first of all, you're going to tell your partner what your 3 things are. And here's the twist, okay? You're going to say to your partner, and this is like a no offense kind of thing, you know, it really is, which of the 3 things you are, no offense, but least interested in hearing about, okay? Now, seriously, one time I had a guy when I did this, and he was like, I'm really sorry, but your nephews are my least interesting thing. And it's not that I don't, it's just that you chose music, you know, which I love music and I love food, and, you know, sorry, you know, so it's not awkward, you're not offending the other person. But which of those 3 things are you the least interested in? And what you're going to do is practice listening to the other person talk about something that you have the least interest in, okay? Because this is what Pathway is all about. This is what building relationships is all about. So, partner up, and then go ahead and establish what that thing is. No offense, but you're just naming it, and then I'll get you started in just a minute, okay?
Like right in front of the camera. Okay.
Yeah, what's your name? Kristen. Yeah, I see Abby at the best every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah, it's fine. But yes. Okay. My 3 things.
All right, you got about 15 seconds to figure that out. Figure out what are the 3 things for you and your partner, and which one are you going to talk about, okay?
My first one is the Holy Spirit.
Don't start yet, just name the thing.
My second one is the mind, how we think of mind. My third is exercising.
All right, everybody look up here. Everybody look up here. And sorry, I just realized I forgot to turn the mic on, so hopefully you can hear me the whole time. But okay, everybody have it figured out? Here's what you're going to do. I'm going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes. I'll have to look at the clock, something like that. And so one person is going to start, and you're going to start talking about this thing that you're passionate about, but the other person's maybe not so interested in. And then if you're the listener, what's going to happen is at the end of the time, you're going to say back to the other person, hey, what I found really interesting about that was fill in the blank, okay? Now you may have like one little thing and that was it, but you're going to say back to them one thing that you found interesting, and then you're going to ask a question, one follow-up question about what they said, okay? Hey, I thought it was really interesting when you said blank, and then you're going to ask a follow-up question, and then you get to respond to that follow-up question if you were the talker, and then we're going to flip it, okay? This is a good exercise. So figure out who's going first, and ready, set, go.
Okay, so I just recently got really passionate about exercising and eating all these things we're learning about it in our psychology class, and how it affects how you actually eat. So obviously the rates of obesity and stuff are increasing in America, but all over the world. But how your weight and what your body feels affects how you eat. So if you're not eating healthy, but you're also not exercising, then you're not going to do well not even be more worried about fighting off the things in your body than it is going to be focused on what you're doing, slash other things. And it affects your relationships because of your focus. It affects your school, your career. So a lot of times in America, we also believe that if you're not healthy or you're eating healthy, or if you're not exercising, then you're not smart. So that in itself is just a low, shallow thing that we do. But it also affects the self-esteem of the other person. So once you say that, then they're going to think that they're not worthy, and then their stereotypical action will be to
1 minute. You got 1 minute left. Just one more minute.
so it's going to cost them even less knowledge in their lifestyle. But also the importance of eating healthy, especially like in school as college students, is that we're in our bodies and talent and not able to control ourselves. And so just learning about that and how it affects like how we think and doing what we're called to do, it affects like how we like that is affected by how we eat, how we exercise.
15 seconds. 15 seconds. All right, up here. So now, remember, you're going to say, if you were listening, you're going to say, hey, I thought it was really interesting when fill in the blank, and then ask a follow-up question. And then if you were the talker, you can respond to that question. So go ahead. Yeah.
My few things are
I would probably say Taylor Swift.
15 seconds. 15 seconds. All right, very good. You're done with round one. Now you're going to switch. Okay, switch, and the other person's going to talk for 2 minutes. So ready, set, go.
That's so cool. Okay, what is your favorite like album? So I usually listen to country music. More than sort of like the okay, what? I thought it was interesting. I never really realized that Taylor Swift has stories in her songs. Like normally you would like think that of like a song, but Taylor Swift's like songwriting abilities and like embedding a story into that is like I never really thought that. 15 minutes to open concepts. That's crazy. Was it fun? It was fun.
like my second one.
15 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay, the listener, make your comment about what was interesting and ask your question. Ready, go.
I heard finance is one of the more difficult
up here. Okay, so I want to hear who's somebody who learned something about something that you knew nothing about, but now you think is really interesting. Somebody raise your hand. Okay, back corner, yes.
Tea, like a lot of different kinds of tea.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. If you need tea, go back to their corner if you want to know about tea. Right here.
Christian existentialism.
Okay, wow. Getting off the deep end. That's awesome. One more. Right here.
Divergent has a Bond soundtrack.
Okay, very good. Who knew? That's awesome. Hey, why do you think about this? Why do you think we did this? Somebody take a guess. Yes, right here.
It's just we're probably going to run into people that we don't always have the same interests as.
Boom.
And if we learn how to like listen to them and like be interested in what they're interested in, it helps us make connections.
Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Bars.
It's fun? It was fun. Good. Okay, great. So exactly, y'all hit it on the nail on the head. So you're gonna have somebody in your pathway group this next year who has very similar interests to you, and you love talking about Baylor basketball. They love Baylor basketball. You're gonna hit it off. And while you're over here in the corner having this like 20-minute conversation, here's everybody else who could maybe care less. And are you just gonna focus on this relationship because it's easy and natural for you? Or are you going to develop and nurture all of these relationships? And this guy over here, man, you could not be interested in more different things. You know, his whole list of 3, you're not interested in any of them. But I bet that you're going to learn to ask questions. And I bet you're going to learn to listen. And I bet when you do, that some closeness is going to be built as a result, that this person's going to realize, wow, this leader cares about me and the things that matter to me in my life. And as a result, trust is going to be built. As a result, safety is going to be grown. And as a result, you're going to have increased influence and opportunity to speak into this person's life and to point them towards God in the easy parts and in the challenging parts of their freshman year. And that's what leadership is all about. Making disciples is a big thing, but at the core of it, it's all about building relationships. And so, anyway, hopefully this activity has helped you kind of get a little glimpse of what that's all about. So anyway, thank you all for having me today.